Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Xtreme Studios. Next to a Taco Bell in Orlando, Florida, in Pine Hills, I've got from the great Midwest RDV with me. Tonight, we're going to be talking about a movie that came out on Netflix this year, 2024, called Badland Hunters, with the person we like to affectionately call Korean Chuck Norris. And RDV, this is a first watch, I think, for both of us. It was pretty popular, this Badland Hunters movie on there. It's South Korean, because obviously Netflix is taking everything that's been made and putting it over here since they're not putting any money into content. A little bit different than our Hong Kong action films we've been reviewing over here on the Xtreme Movie Show too. What's your initial take? And then I'll give mine.
Honestly, going into this movie, I didn't know what to expect. I only knew it was Don Lee, and just, it looked at a desolate world. And I just jumped into it. And then like I said, I figured it was going to be like every sci-fi movie is on Netflix or whatever. There's always a lot of CG. A lot of these Asian movies have a lot of CG, the newer ones. And the CG wasn't too bad in here. I don't mind CGI, Actually, I thought this was actually kind of good movie.
This to me is more of like I would call a drama movie rather than a post-apocalyptic thriller with mutated zombies, because in retrospect, if one would to think about this film to decide whether or not they'd watch it, aka, in other words, if someone said, hey, sell me on this movie, I would simply say this. How many decapitations can one movie support sufficiently? And how many times can you support carrying around your kind of hot daughter in a piece of luggage while she's on life support and actually come along as being pretty convincing as an evil, mad, giant scientist or whatever that steals the pituitary gland from teenagers in a pretty interesting setup, because that's what we have here. Yeah, so what this movie is about is we, of course, get the opening gambit where some guy's performing this, experiment on this young woman, this teenager. He's got the really bad halo thing. She's all strapped up and he's connecting something to her. And it's really cheap special effects, but effective, right? Yep. And the South Korean police in Seoul, South Korea, to break in. And there's this big tense scene. And in the background, of course, you see the outside of where his office is. And it's the downtown, expensive, very rich, modern part of Seoul, South Korea. And then the unthinkable happens. We get a plot twist. We get a massive earthquake. And then we roll credits. So I thought this opening setup's pretty self-explanatory. And one thing I did like, RDV, was the fact that this wasn't a mystery like, oh my God, what's happening in that building? Oh my God, let's wait for a turn. It's pretty straightforward, and they do that because, as we see, when we get to see Don Lee's character, he's pretty soon in the vast wasteland as we're exploring this world together with some people. He's big game hunting with a machete. I thought this was kind of cute. It wasn't totally stupid looking, and the CGI was passable for what it is. You know what I mean?
Yep. And apparently this is based off another movie that came out a year prior to 2024, actually last year. I forget what it's called, but it's like a concrete something like that. But basically you get to see more of the earthquake and more of the scientist and his daughter and all this stuff. So if you wanted the backstory on that guy, that's the movie to watch. This is basically a new chapter with Don Lee. Basically, he's the town, little community, little hobo town. He's the butcher. He goes hunts and then he sells the meat. Yeah, it's this boy. And this boy is always with them. He's looked after him since for a while now. Yeah, and he basically comes with him, and he basically typical teenager. He likes his other girl that's living with her grandma,
but he just doesn't know how to bang her.
He doesn't know how to say it. He doesn't know how to approach her.
Yeah,
because they come with a different. Remember, this isn't America. They have totally different way of approaching each other. Yes, they're not as promiscuous as Americans are.
Oh, Americans are a bit prudish by other cultural standards, but it does bear the thought. What if this movie turned into an action thriller with some karate and gun violence in here, and to more of how quickly do we up the ante in a post-apocalyptic society and marry down? Because I mean, that's what would happen, right?
We introduced the giant alligator. that's trying to, and then he's got this little bow and arrow, and he misses, and it comes after him, and he saved. You see right there, you got Don Lee with the machete. He just takes it out, and then not even immediately after that, because he basically chopped up the meat, and people are coming in and they're trading stuff.
Yeah,
they barter because there's a post-apocalyptic. Water is scarce.
Correct.
This gang shows up. and they're looking for something, and they start, they start harassing the girl that his other colleague basically likes, and so Don Lee is basically forced to step in and beat the shit out of him. And like I said, there's a lot of action as far as with him when he fights. And I
Yes.
like this.
Yes.
So, I believe after that, it's like I forgot exactly what happens in the middle part, because I skipped through this again. I watched this twice now. I watched the first time, I watched it back when it came out on Netflix. We were talking about it, and then I was scanning through it. But I do remember, like, as far as like the main kid. Let me look his name up. He is like, it's just so annoying. I just wanted him to get
You wanted him to get got.
Lee Jung-young is the actor, and I just like, oh my gosh, he's just like so annoying. Is it Rojang?
Rojang.
Yeah. She
Not Mahjong.
no, but she's the main character, and she's actually pretty badass in this. So it's like
she is.
She almost
she stands out.
Yeah. But I do like about you get it's more than just like a sci-fi, shoot 'em up or monster stuff. Like, you get to learn more about Don Lee's character, about he had a family and stuff. He's torn up about that. And so basically, it all comes down to basically a battle. With this evil doctor has this gang. They're kidnapping people, and when they're training them for water, because the guy needs test subjects, because he needs stuff. And the girl ends up being tricked into it, because they come like, oh, we have a raffle from this city. Everybody heard about this Paradise City, where they have fresh water and stuff. So she gets they're only looking for a certain type of people. So the girl, because she's 18, young stuff, and her and some other girls are selected, and they go with their parents. And yeah, your parents come along, all under this whole this guise, that they give a shit about them. But you learn later, it's that evil scientist with his daughter, who's in a suitcase, and stuff. It's just really messed up, and like, he wants them to come in there, and he wants to basically lobotomize them, make the parents work. They're that's what generates electricity in this little hotel thing. It is just messed up. You got these soldiers, and then you run into this other soldier woman in here, and you're like, what's going on here? You learn her backstory, and you basically, the results of these adults are injecting themselves with the pituitary gland stuff, because their goal is basically, there's no water, they're gonna adapt like reptiles.
Yes,
reptiles, and we get some really kind of like snake people, lizard people, and I love it. And then, like I said, you get Don Lee later on with a shotgun, the knife fight scene. I just said, this movie was a little hidden gem for me. I did not expect it to be this good. And it's got a 5.6 on IMDb, but I don't think that's fair. I think it actually is higher ranked, should be higher ranked.
Well, I tell you, it's one of the things where, again, watching a film, it's a modern one, obviously, from a different culture. We've been kind of, I think, spoiled with our 80s martial arts, Hong Kong style and all that, which we do love a lot of. We talk about practical effects and the person's use of the body. This film does a good job of introducing characters and setting the plot without it being too cute. It's dystopian, but it's not bleak. Like was it that Cormac McCarthy movie or whatever with oh, Jesus Christ, the guy from Lord of the Rings that everybody loves, Vigo. The Walk or something, not The Walk, but something, whatever. The Road by Cormac. That's bleak as fuck. But this one is more survival thing. And what I liked about it too, it's interesting you mentioned something earlier. I want to bring that up because South Korea is obviously a very rich country and all that too. Things have changed over the couple world wars, all that. There's the element of capitalism, which is primarily a Western type economic situation here too, which is not a form of government. It's a form of interaction that relies on goods and services. And the fact that they tell you early on, they don't really say too much about, the climate change or this or that, or a man's messing with nature, any bullshit like that. It's just, hey, something happens. And so what happens? You're going to have a society that's trying to survive and get by. And that's what happens. This guy's got a skill. It's very valuable. He's efficient at it. He's not screwing around, cracking jokes. And so it's interesting because the evil doctor it would be very easy to dismiss him as somebody that just comes across as like a joke or a goofball. But I think he did a good job
Oh
of
no,
drawing the line between saying, hey, I'm trying to save humanity. And it's always the excuse, this is why I do bad shit, right? Which we're tired of it already. But what sold it for me too was the fact that he said, you know what? I'm not even going to apologize for it. I'm going to create this super, how do I describe society where people can come in. And so by the laws of supply and demand, hey, you've got an abandoned apartment building, you've
right?
got infrastructure in place, you know logistically how to go about getting food, water. You tell the old people, hey, we'll go ahead and we'll educate your teenagers and all that. We'll help reform society. We'll have a bit of culture. We'll have rules and regulations. And the parents are unwilling, not unwilling, I would say necessarily, but they don't exactly know the catch is, oh,
They're
by the way, we're going
promised,
to take
yeah,
your teenager and some
yeah.
of them, and we're going to do experiments on them.
Like I love the way he convinces them. He says like, well, no, we want all wants what's best for your children here, so we're gonna give them proper education. There's a school here. There's
Right.
fresh water.
Yep.
All you got to do is earn your fair work down there, work there, and then we'll take care of the kids up there. And then and they promise they'll be able to see their kid and stuff. And then this couple comes in with their daughter. She's with the other, she's the other girl that came in with the main girl.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh, you're all excited! We got chosen." It's like they're like, think it's like Willy Wonka with the golden ticket.
That's
No,
exactly what it is.
yeah,
You
yeah,
restrict the availability of something. In sales, that would be called a takeaway, where you
yep,
slide the pen over, you assume the clothes. Well, I don't
yep,
know if I really want you to take away. Well, I've got somebody else. In a post-apocalyptic thing, think about it. You've got running water.
mm-hmm,
You've got
yep,
everything there. That's where you want to be. This is a guy that knows what he's doing, and he doesn't come across as like having this like God complex or savior thing when he's talking to people.
yeah.
He's just a smart guy that's put himself in a good situation, and he sells it really good to the parents. You're absolutely right.
And
And like
I
parents, they want what's best for the kids, so they overlook what their instincts should tell them. Hey, this isn't right. It's too easy,
I
because
think
they get made to work. That's the beauty of it. This guy's good.
I love the Korean, like a lot of these like this super sci-fi stuff of this. Like I'm watching a Sweet Home. It's another thing. They have a scientist in there. He did research on people and stuff. He's kind of the same type of character. I love these characters. They're not crazy, in a sense they are, but they're like the point that they basically they're so smart, but they lead to their downfall. And
Hubris.
I
Yeah.
mean, you could say this guy should get the Father's Day award. You know, he was trying to save his daughter when the earthquake happened.
Yep.
And then he injected her with this drug and all this stuff, and just like, and so she's still breathing, but it's not even a full body though. That's what's disturbing about this.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm not making fun of this. You mentioned how the movie was a 5.6 roughly for
Mm-hmm.
ratings, which we don't
Yeah.
really give a shit about, but it's interesting to compare it, because to me, I liked the first act. Actually, I thought it did a good job setting stuff, introducing to it. What confused me though in the second one, which makes this movie a little bit different than what I thought going in, and for some people that could be a negative, um, it's very deliberate. There's a lot less action than you think there would be. There's a lot more of the backstory and setting up for stuff. I don't know if that works for the payoff in the third act, which I actually thought was very good. We'll talk about that too here in a moment. But it definitely has like a tonal shift to me. Not like it becomes happy or whatever, but you're like, it's drama. And a part of me is like, okay, when's the next thing going to happen? Is this going to be an action movie or not? Or so what? And there's great action in
Yeah.
here. Don't get me
Oh
wrong.
yeah. Oh yeah.
They just save it for the final act, because again, I'm asking myself, why do I care about what's going on? There's some interesting things that are going on here, but maybe in Korean society, where this movie came out on Netflix, maybe there's some themes that are more of a punch to the Korean society, as opposed to American society, where we're like, okay, they're just glossing over this. We've seen this 50 million times. You know what I mean?
Look at Korea. We had Train to Busan. We got movies like this. We got the Sweet Home. They're doing all, and All of Us Are Dead. They're doing all these different like cool like sci-fi movies you'd see in the 80s. Ideas, and they're just instead of like these are the ones without the nudity, basically the slasher stuff. And I like this. Is like, and what's really cool about this, they're putting martial arts fight scenes in here too. Don Lee, when he gets towards the end, there's a stair scene where he has to climb the stairs.
Yes.
To get upstairs. And not only is he going down a hallway, he's fighting and beating up these guys who are like reptile soldiers, and he's killing them, shooting them with the shotgun, and then he's stabbing them with knives up, handgun. And then you see him as he gets out to the top of the stairs, he's out of breath.
He's gassed. Exactly.
I love it.
And
You
what
know,
does he do? He picks up the gun there, and he's using it as like a cane to go up the last couple flights of
yeah, yeah,
stairs. I
yeah.
thought that's kind of funny. But the
Like you
thing
said,
we talked about with some of these is that we want to see that there's a physical price to pay for when you get into
yeah,
fights. And that particular scene and some stuff before and after it are definitely worth diving into. I think the thing in the middle that would throw people off to kind of finish up on that thought is I
yeah,
agree with you. That's where you can kind of get lost or feel like, all right, I'm gonna go take a leak. I'll go make some popcorn or whatever. Not much necessarily happens, but it's very plot driven, which again, I wasn't necessarily expecting it. But we said this about the cop movie of his a few weeks ago that we
right.
reviewed, right? So okay, maybe that's just some of the movies he's in. It's the way it's cast because he's got a small group of people. They're going to go break into this apartment complex and save her. That's the plan. They're not A-teaming it. They're not being cute
No,
about it
no.
or whatever. It's just okay. We don't know what we're going to do, but
And
let's just go do it.
oh, the other, and then the other girl, except she's a former soldier, she couldn't go with that. She's the one that left, and she's teaming up with him. She gets tossed out a window, bro,
I know.
off the balcony.
I wasn't
Oh,
expecting that.
no, and I was just like, oh, like she's dead. It's just-
Well, but I thought so too. I went, ooh, I didn't think they were going to do that.
but the great thing though, is I always love this when I see this, the grenade in the mouth. With the bad guy he's fighting in the stairwell at the end. He's just like, he's like snake, whatever, puts a grenade in his mouth and just explodes.
So the third act is what I will simply title blah 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 blah, which is South Korean for extraction, because they've got this big tanked up kind of vehicle they're driving there, and yeah, it's a little Mad Max-ish, it's a little Wasteland-ish.
Yeah.
And one of the things I did like about the idea here is that I was like, okay, zombies. Whenever I see zombies more, I just don't care. I'll be honest with you, I don't.
I hear you.
And but I like that this concept of going back to our roots of like reptiles and the reptile brain. We have a part of our brain that's referred to as a reptile brain. It acts quick and responds to stimuli more than the prefrontal cortex or whatever it's called and all that. Where what happens is you develop filters when you're younger, and so when you're thinking about something, it takes longer to process than reacting. And it's interesting because they had a kind of a concept here, and I thought, okay, maybe this movie's going to get a little bit brainiac, but it really didn't. And it would have been great if they did some sort of adrenochrome thing, but I'm still waiting for that movie with kids. But
Yeah.
so what do? They're driving in, they get to the check-in point, and they got a dude with them, and the soldiers are like, you're only on certain days, and it's like, yeah, but I thought I'd say hi to my good buddy, and he's like,
it's the gangster that
yeah.
he knows, that he intimidates. He beats the crap out of him when he goes looking for the girl originally. They go there, yeah, and then so he says, "What you're gonna do? You deliver people there. You're gonna deliver us."
Yes.
And he basically like he's got his the guy's driving. He's in the back. He's got the gun to the back of the guy's head. And he's like, smile. Yeah, I like this, and he's like. And this guy's, was a top gangster, but he's chicken shit. He's not really. He's kind of like for those who watch Iron Man 3, he's the fake Mandarin. He's not really a tough guy. He just claims to be. He pretends to be. And so, yeah, they crash into the building. I love that. They just runs the gate while they're shooting at him. There's a lot of soundstage with some green screen.
Yes.
So, as I said, I give credit to the Koreans that are doing a lot of movies that Americans just kind of went away from.
I would call this honestly like a late night B-ish kind of movie fodder because it seems not cheap in a negative way, but it doesn't seem like it's high value production, but it's done well. Most of it's shot outside or at least with lit stuff. The action stuff's very good because once they go through the extraction, this thing takes off for the whole last act. It's pretty intense and it moves really quick. And I thought, okay, this is the movie I was expecting, just with a few pauses, to kind of breathe and reset a little bit. But my mistake was going there thinking it's automatically a martial arts movie, and it's not. So then I go, well, if there's a lot of guns, which there are in here, it's an action movie, which I don't mind action movies. So to me, like you say, the lady in here that's helping out, she almost steals the show, but I'm almost like, oh man. But here's the thing about one of the things I noticed with the fight scenes, because once they break into the building, they're starting to go up. They basically split up into two groups. You get your two batches of fight, trying to discover the girl. And releasing everybody and all that heroic crap. They have what I would call like a two shot is, I think, two people in it, right? So like if you and I are talking, and like you see the back of my head in the front of yours, where the camera's like over my shoulder, right? But then they do what I call like a two bottom shot, where the shot's on the bottom looking up at the two people fighting, and you could tell somebody's having it, because it's not that shaky, unsteady cam like you got in the Bourne movies.
No.
But there's a little bit of, not the crash zooms and all that, but you can definitely tell somebody knows exactly where they're moving, and like will move up and down in one shot. So it gives this illusion, this appearance of how quick they are, but you feel the space that they're fighting in, if that makes sense. We're not getting that two-dimensional Street Fighter left and right side of the television set characters coming out fighting. So you get that shifting there, which I think adds to it. And I have to say this, I'm going to go on record for saying it. I may have mentioned it a few movies ago from the South Korean perspective. They have a monopoly on when they use guns, when you see the blood packs or whatever you want to call it, how they introduce effects. I don't know if it's CGI or practical, but like there's one scene in here where someone gets shot in the head, and there's the way it comes out. You're like, holy shit! It's realistic looking, which I don't know that it is. Cause what the hell do I know, right?
You know, reminds me of The Boys. The Boys does this too. When someone gets shot in the head, and you see the exit wound. You know? Do
you? But do you get the splat coming out almost real time too?
Sometimes you do, not always. Yeah. Depends. There's not a lot of gun deaths. Is more a crowbar to the head.
Right.
It's like, so, but I like that when, like I said, when it looks like a meat popsicle, just shoot it, and you shoot it the front of the head, and you see the back part where it shoots out like pyrotechnic or whatever they use.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yeah, I use some real blood packs versus CG. It's really cool. You see that a lot with the zombie, movies,
right?
And like I said, I like that too. I pop for those too. It's like oh, because that's like, that's nasty, but it's realistic. It's not like it's just like, oh, it's CG and that's it. Or a lot of times you don't even see a mist. You just see the bullet and that's it.
Yes.
So when you actually see, there's a little bit of gore in this. So if you're squeamish about that, and you're not a fan of tomato sauce,
yeah. So the whole thing here is if you're a teenager and you're growing, he's basically trying to activate your pituitary gland by slipping a Mickey, as I like to say, into the water that they drink and serve it. Yeah. And because water's really rare and all that. Well, this girl didn't drink it, which we don't find out till later, kind of sort, unless you know ahead of time and you're paying attention, like I'm spoiling it for you. So basically, the one girl's looking for the other girl, and the scientist goes into his lab up there, and then they realize they're under assault. So all the stuff's starting to pick up action-wise, and she's trying to hide in the other room. And the one girl's kind of caught, and he puts her on the thingy. He's got the halo on her head. He's got her tied up, and he's just putting this stupid little thing on her pituitary, right underneath the ear, on the neck.
Yeah,
it's such shitty effects, but it's effective, right?
When he says the halo thing, he means like when you don't keep your head straight.
Yeah, exactly. Around your temple and all that.
Yeah.
So things like that work.
It's gross, and you see it, and she's there, and like, of course, the kid does come in and helps rescue her too.
Mm-hmm.
He nuts up.
Yeah.
I thought it was actually pretty cool. I mean, they kind of left it kind of. You could, if you really want to do it another one, they could.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
Let me get to the great reveal, which I think popped me the hardest, and I'll let you talk about the action. Because the action, the sequence you're talking about here, with both of them kind of meet, and the girl having her fight with Super Soldier, who peels off his own face, I popped hard for that. That's a great extended sequence.
You see the snake skin die. Ugh.
But so basically, the bad guy's scientist is getting all pissy, and he's bitching about, you guys don't have any respect for me, those kinds of things, what I'm trying to do to save the world, because it's true. Men and women, no matter what you think about them, their evolutionary aspect is to get your DNA to the future. Yep. So the selection strategy, mate-wise, is different for a woman than a man. And so for the scientist, I guess he's feeling the pressure of Mother Nature and his genes. His basic way of getting his seed into the future is by making sure that there's humans alive that can exist. So he's trying to have them basically not have to depend on water so much by turning them almost lizard-like. I'm not joking. And he's doing that on all the teenagers. But not only is he doing it from the scientifically moral space that you could argue is stupid, the fact is his daughter, which is the lady that he was working on at the very beginning of the film, is still alive. But here's the thing: when he pulls back the curtain, so to speak, and you see her, you don't just see her head like the Abby Normal one in Young Frankenstein. You see her shaved head, her shoulders with her arms cut off, and her torso being cut basically in a V-shaped thing, where just underneath the left side you can still see a chunk of her beating heart, and it's in a liquid thing. So he has this in a super scientifical stainless steel Samsonite briefcase,
Yeah.
and you're like, that's funny as shit to me, because he's talking to her, he's like, I'll save you, baby girl, this is what I'm working on. You're like, I like it. It's dumb,
Like,
but
and
I like it.
and I thought about that. I'm like, wait, is he gonna try to use the recombinant DNA that lizards have so they can regrow their limbs?
Right. You never know. That's a thought too, right? Seriously, because they some can do that. That's how do sharks regenerate? And other lizards that are very old, there's something in there that's turned off in their genetic sequence we don't have.
Yeah.
But when you see it, that's actually a really, really good look, because you're like, okay, she's going to open her eyes at some point, and she never does. She's just sitting there, and you're like, this is kind of fucked, but I like it.
You know what it reminds me of? For those who watch The Walking Dead, when they introduce the governor, and then when Sean walks into the back room where he has all the jars of the zombie heads in there, still alive, they're still moving stuff. And then, like, you see his daughter. Like I said, that's what it reminded me of too. I was like, oh, this is like kind of gnarly. It's like, it's it's like just let her die.
I'm talking about it like it's kind of goofy, but when you're watching it, that's the thing I did like about the film. Even though the middle's kind of a slog to get through a little bit, it pays off here because the amount of action. And I think the scientist guy's not bad at what he's doing here. I mean, he's sort of generic, don't get me wrong, but he was convincible farther along in this movie because you only get him in spurts of it, which is good. He's yelling and screaming his own way, but it's not the way we would do it where it's overbearing.
He's like the main guy, but be like, you see, if anything, you see more of the principal, superintendent, the girl, the lady works for him, the teacher works for him, and then she's the one that's in the class teaching the class where the girl is, and like, and she noticed like, oh, you're not acting normal. Here, have some water. And she's like, no, I'm good. And just like, and at the end, he like betrays her, and she's like, why would you betray me? I'm like, this is the cult. I'm the leader.
So RDB, I'm not saying what I'm about to say is not meant to necessarily be controversial, or I'm not trying to be like that. We don't do that here on Xtreme Movie Show, but we talk sometimes about ideas and concepts, whether it's 80s films compared to other stuff and all that. There's a concept out there about women being pure evil compared to men, and the fact that because they naturally, and I'm only talking here in the evolutionary aspect, they have more of a nurturing instinct than males do. Males have a different type of instinct when it comes to their offspring. The fact that women are capable of doing some very nasty things to their offspring in nature, because nature is violent, let's be honest, and all that too. Sure. Some think of women as being pure evil. So this guy, you go, well, wait a minute, how much of this is him being a bad guy, or is it really like the lackey of the school teacher, headmistress, like you're saying? I don't know that it's really explored there, but I can totally see a woman being in charge, because you're more likely to go, hey, we've got a middle-aged lady here that's in charge of here. We've got the society set up. We got the guy who's in the back doing all the labor-intensive stuff, scientific stuff, getting the water, making it work. It makes sense, right?
Yeah, but except that wasn't the case on this. No, she was infatuated with him, and like it all, and I said he kept injecting himself with the chemical too to keep himself alive and stuff with the injections. I was just like, so I laughed when like here she's like, why? Like, why would you take me with you? He's like,
we're never together. Yeah. You're mid.
yeah. It's like you're useless. Like,
and then he throws a grenade in there to kill her.
Yeah,
that was stupid funny.
But as far as evil goes, it doesn't matter what gender it is. Evil's evil.
There's different kinds of evil. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Evil is pretty evil.
All right. But I've been wanting to use this phrase for 5-6 years now. I'm going to. Let's talk about all the decapitations.
Oh, those are fun.
We saw him early on help out the young guy, the guy that had the bow and arrow, and realized, shit, I can't just hit a gator once or twice. I need to put him out. A post-apocalyptic gator sounds better to say. We see him with his machete because he's
gator.
Huh?
Was it a apocalyptic gator?
I who knows. It's a way to introduce Yen's character. Like you say, he's a butcher. He's a meat guy, so he knows how to use his tools. He's got like this kind of cool looking machete, more of the flat edge kind of one rather than the I'd call the curvy South American type.
Well, you see right there, he's holding it. It looks kind of dull though. That's the way it is.
Yeah, but who knows if it's stained or whatever. But what the point you mentioned earlier about him, there's this, like I say, the two groups split up. So one of the group is looking for the girl to get her out, and he's basically saying, hey, go find her, get the kids, get out of here. I'll take care of all the other stuff. So he's there to kick ass and make sure she gets out. So he's dealing with people, and when they take the truck and they go into the building and they start having a little shootout, it's a little kind of disorganized, the fact that they only had so much guns and weapons.
Yeah.
But they do the video game thing. You just pick up the gun from the person that you just killed or whatever like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of shooting here. I'm like, man, these are the worst guards ever. But I mean, what do you expect, right? You don't practice these scenarios in a post-apocalyptic world, because how often is this going to happen?
But that's the same thing they did in John Wick. He'd lose a gun, he'd go grab someone else's gun.
Yeah, because that's what you would do.
Because that's what you do in real life, And that's what I liked about it when I played Uncharted. I killed the bad guy. Like, you want to swap out the gun for this gun? Sure. It's like I said, this is more believable that they would all have the same guns because that's what they have here. But if like I said, like I say, there's a lot of games where it's like, oh, there's only 3 guns in the game, and every hunchman has the same gun, so you get more bullets. But yeah, I like this because even when he runs out of bullets, he still uses it as a bat, and stuff.
Yeah,
as I said, like it said, the hallway scene is my favorite.
Best.
Yeah, is my favorite here. And then I said, and he's making his way up the stairs and stuff. He has to fight. Then he has to fight the snake dude. At first, but the snake dude is too focused on the other army girl. And then when he yeets her out of the window, I was just like, oh my gosh, they're actually going for this. And I would love to see the stunts on this. Is she just jumping onto she getting pulled? They have the harnesses and they pull you real fast.
So it's interesting because, okay, let's talk about film here for a little bit. 24 frames per second is usually about what the eye sees, I believe. So if you speed something up, it can appear more smooth, and you can edit it and all that. It looks a little more flowing. I think Lord of the Rings was known as one of the first digital movies to go 60 frames a second, or The Hobbit or whatever. But what you can do is you can speed it up a little bit, and we always joke here on Xtreme Movie Show every few months when we're finishing a season 1 on our Xtreme TV stream with the young 20-something Professor Pixel, we go in order of the James Bond films, which we're getting ready to do License to Kill with Timothy Dalton. He hasn't seen those. He remarked, oh my God, I can't believe in Goldfinger, one of the earlier films with Sean Connery, about there's this driving sequence that obviously you've got the back screen set up and all that, but he talked about how it looked weird and sped up with the punching and stuff. I'm like, you see it in Thunderball and all that, and it's not very convincing or good, right? That's not why you're necessarily watching a Bond film, at least the early ones. Here, I feel like I see some of it, but what you can do with film is you can take some frames out, which makes it almost look like it pops and snaps faster. And I can't tell what they're doing, because the scene where they all are together and then they go to split up, they're kind of like in the bowels of the building, so to speak. And this is where they stumble across the results of the people that are on this experiment that are lizard-like. They open up the gate thinking they're people trapped, and it turns out they're not. They're feral beasts. It's like, I got this. Get out of here. Go find the girls and get out. And so when they're going through all this, there's some smart use of gunplay, but then he has to pick up his machete, and he just literally goes through decapitating people left to right. And you see the heads come off in the stumps there, and it's not the kind of funny, ha-ha, Evil Dead sort of thing. This is pretty damn gruesome, but you can tell there's some parts where they're zooming the camera from, say, the back shot over the shoulder shot we talked about to more towards the center low, where are they speeding that up while they're doing it to make it look even more fluid? Because it's a great sequence. It's very violent and graphic, and it's a combination of the guns, the sword stuff there too. But then one of the scenes I liked was when they're knocking on a door and he hears the guards coming through, and he hears the click because they're pulling the pin on a grenade. He sticks the shotgun at the door, blows it, and so it blows the grenade up in front of all the guys behind him. I'm like, that's kind of smart in a way that's not stupid. I'm not saying it's realistic, but for what we're being sold on as a viewer, hey, they even say, man, we don't have that many bullets. Okay, pick up their guns or whatever like that. Hey, how are we doing? I don't have any bullets left. Oh, there's a bunch of guards here, and boom. And then when they split up, the girl, who apparently was a model and went to theater school or like that, I thought in a sneaky way, I'm not going to say she stole the show, but she was noticeable because, to your point, the dude is just sort of there. He's not a bad character. He's a good-looking guy, but he's a zero compared to her, because she's kind of serious, but she kicks ass. And she has a fight with second-in-command lizard face guy, who's a good-looking dude and all that. And to answer your question in a long-winded way here, to kind of sum up some of the things they do here, there's a lot of, when you have a smaller person and a much bigger person, typically they've done us a lot in with women fighting that maybe weigh a buck 20 against a guy that's 180, you're going to gas out. You're going up against more resistance in terms of just sheer mass. You're going to fatigue. So what do? You do a lot of spinny kind of stuff where you do more like a sling blade thing. So you see her jumping up. She actually does a good job in a nice sequence there of this fight, of stabbing the dude in the face and ripping down on her. You're like, fuck yeah, yank that.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, is he gonna do the thing where he pulls the blade out of his eye, like laughs at her? No, he's just staring at her, and I'm like, oh, he's got another one. It's on. And he beats the shit out of her, and to your point, throws her out through the glass box. I was not expecting that. Yeah. It's a good fight.
Yeah, like I said, for I guess I misspoke before. I was saying a 5.6. It's a 5.9. But like I've seen, we watch other movies like that people rate a little higher. I think these get bad raps because they're on Netflix. So a lot of people have seen it because people refuse to buy Netflix for whatever reason or they already have another streaming service. But I thought this was entertaining, for being a little film that I had no idea was even coming out. This happened to be on Netflix. I'm like, what is this? And I'm like, oh, it's Don Lee, but I'm like, I don't know. Once you've seen a sci-fi dystopian show, or movie, you've seen them all.
Yeah, if you watch Universal Soldier, I mean, you're not going to be surprised by any of this, right?
No. But I mean, I still pop for Universal Soldier. I like pretty much all the Universal Soldiers except for the one with the Goldberg and then the second one. Like I said, this was fun. It's entertaining, and I said I've become to appreciate a lot more of the Korean sci-fi, horror, movies or shows are coming out on Netflix. So yeah.
I was thinking of there's a guy that we really have not done very many of his movies. His son had one out that had what I called Low T Skarsgård in it, that infinity pool kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That was just incredibly fun about a year or so ago. I believe the person who did that is the son of the guy I'm about to mention, David Cronenberg, who does a lot of what I would call body horror type things. And if you listen to some of his things, he has an interesting take on the human body and the violence associated with it and stuff like that too, like with the history of violence. And he's the one that did the remake of The Fly back in the 80s with Jeff Goldblum. Mm-hmm. Scanners, which we have still yet to cover, I think, here on the Xtreme Movie Show and a bunch of stuff. But one of the earlier movies of his that I saw that was shot in, I think, an upscale kind of place called Shivers. And what it is a bunch of people, this couple moves into a building and they're, middle class, above middle class. And again, this is mid 70s, right? Yeah. And this is Canada, so it's a little different. But it's interesting because basically they kind of get infected and then things turn out kind of crazy and they're all trying to escape the building. So while we have these two different groups, A and B fight sequences, and they kind of merge up at the end and they meet the doctor. And then, of course, literally the curtain gets revealed where we see his daughter, as I mentioned, in the super Samsonite stainless steel briefcase. Things are going ape shit. The alarm has been sounded. Some of the parents along the way have been released, and they're like, hey, you want to see your kids? Get out of here. So they're trying to figure all this stuff out. And so basically it's like, okay, there's confusion. The bad, evil doctor escapes. And so what does he do? He takes what medicine he has. He's basically saying, you guys are fucking idiots. But he manages to get to the ground floor where the big truck that they rammed in comes through. So it's a nice big set piece. I do like it. It looked cool. I like the apartment complex vibe to it. And everyone's just kind of meeting up with their kids or whatever. And so there was a comment made in here about, the children are our future. How dare you? But then all the parents kind of surround him as he's leaving. And this is fucking hysterical to me. He's leaving. He's basically like, oh, I'll take you, dear. We'll just start over again, So basically he's still attached to that dream and he believes in it. He's not being maniacal, but he's sold on it. So he's got this briefcase and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, what if he had the super Samsonite stainless steel briefcase, but it was like the current ones that you see everywhere in airplanes today where people traveling, where you have the extension telescopic handle on it, and you have it on wheels, because he didn't, right? He's trying to carry this female torso in his thing and some stuff, and so the people surround him, and so the comment was made about, hey, I do believe eventually you reap what you sow, and so all the people are like, hey, you let us hear, you told us and all that. And he basically was like, hey, y'all are dumb fucks. You didn't give a shit about your kids. I mean, he's saying it in his own way. It was a lot nicer sounding. So what's a mob of angry parents going to do? They go Nightmare on Elm Street on him, and they surround him and start beating the shit out of him. But he gets the upper hand as he's getting his ass beat. There's a gun laying there. He starts shooting, and it's like, hey, this guy's going to escape, right?
Yep.
Irony of ironies, what happens as he's dropped a lot of the people that were running away trying to take vengeance on him.
Yep.
He shot the briefcase. And what does he do? He opens it up so we can see it. I love it. And he's having a little conversation with his dead daughter's tourist cell. Yeah. This is tremendous. Yep. What a way to end it. And of course, Dong comes down. They say a couple things. He just shoots him, and we're pretty much done with the ending, except for when they show them all kind of like back at the small little town that they're at. We're chopping up like the special pig or whatever they caught. And some chick with 2 shot glasses and a bottle of undisclosed booze shows up and gives them the freaky deaky eye. And the kid's like, go for a romp in the hang. It's like, okay.
The same lady from the beginning, she's kind of like a prostitute. Like, you know, he's like, and he's like, hey, you should go out with her. It's like, you know, she likes you. He's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
So, like I said, there's a little bit of comedy in this and a little bit of action, a little sci-fi. You know, I liked it. I thought it was good, and like I said, it's a popcorn movie. That's what I'm best to explain it. So,
yeah, it's solid. I think the middle, it can be a bit of a slog. I'm not saying it's bad or you know, what are we going to get through? It's just I really kind of didn't know what kind of movie it's going to be, and a part of that I blame on myself because I do feel like the films we watched with Don Lee in them are more my style in terms of they're more serious. They have more of a drama angle to it. What I will say about here, the utility of violence, and here him going up the stairs and he's like, oh man, my knee. He's not being cute about it. He's a big, wide-bodied dude.
Well,
it makes sense. The girl, when she has her fight, she gets her ass beat and she looks tired, even though they do a good job. They hold the knife underhand, you know, in the right way for their strokes. Everyone's professional in here, but it's not the, hey, I didn't, you know, get any blood and guts on me. Everyone's tired looking and beat up looking at the end. And it's realistic that way.
I want to point out that Don Lee, when you see him when he's got the yellow plaid on and stuff, you know, or the red plaid, he just looks so out of place. It's like, here's this guy we know he could kick your ass, and he's just suddenly he's dressed like a Westerner. Like you see him right there, he's got the jacket on. It's like, that's not the Don Lee I know. The Don Lee I know.
Be a somewhat big, middle-aged Asian person that you'd see in a grocery store.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't think anything special about him. That's not a knock. That's a good thing. It's realistic.
It is realistic. So when you see him here, it's like, you know, once he gets going to work, it's like, oh damn. Yeah. So like I said, I appreciate this movie, and like I said, every time I get the chance to see Don Lee being like the badass and just taking out people, goons left and right, you know. And then being winded afterwards. It's fun because it's realistic. It's not like, oh, I am sick. Oh, boop 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 boop. The block gets up, and then boop. You know, it's like I'm like I want a guy who's actually like out of breath. That's why I looked about the Jean-Claude Van Damme films when he do all this kick stuff and then he'd be out of breath. It didn't seem like Seagal's movies where he actually was like, you know, physically exhausted. You know.
Yeah.
You know.
No, I liked it too. I've told you that, like, when we review certain films, we talk about templates that we see. Not all movies are that way, but a lot of them are, and that's basic storytelling. Yeah. The third act usually, to me, it seems to be the worst of all of them because people don't know how to resolve things. I thought this movie's third act was actually the best. The opening act, the first act, I thought was good. The first one, or the middle act, to me is serviceable, is what I'll say. So it may make you feel a little bit different about it, but I will say this. When we're doing the Hong Kong action films, generally they have a certain vibe. And yes, we've done a lot of the Michelle Yeoh, Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung. We've you know, talked about some of the main ones there and everything too. And we're recognizing a certain kind of style, although a lot of them have been 80s ones, so that has a certain funness to it. We've done a few modern ones and one-off ones too, but there's definitely a difference with these South Korean ones here too. And I do appreciate a little bit of the tone that they put to them. It's a little less juvenile, more serious, but you know, it's a more of a current thing. It was made for Netflix, so it's not going to be like what we saw in the 80s, which would be the popcorn type film. I would not call this a popcorn film because it's not a fun film, but it's done well. You know what I'm saying? It's not like we go in there and we're like, yeah, beat him up, let's have fun, and then you leave and you're like, cool.
When he starts kicking ass, I'm like, yeah.
That was good. Yeah, that's why we call him Korean Chuck Norris, because he's just kind of serious, and his films seem to have that. I'm going up the boss chain, and then beat the last shit at the end.
Chuck Norris, I say.
But the best thing, really, with a couple films of his we've done recently, is the fact that when he uses violence, there's a point to it, and that's it. He doesn't sit there and have the cute one-liners, "I'll be back," or "Did that hurt?" Or any of these other things like we have in a kind of the fun 80s martial arts. It's a means to an end, and then when it's done, that's it. And I think his expression, you call it resting bitch face and all that, there's not much of a change to it. It's not wooden like a Keanu is, and that's not a knock. That's just how Keanu is. It's not an expressive one, but it's intense, and it matches the roles that he's playing, especially with the type of tones of films in here. So that's good casting. That's being smart about it. I don't want to see him in an action comedy wearing a fat suit or a skinny suit or something. No way.
He's like the opposite of Sammo Hung. He's the serious guy.
Yeah.
And it works for him. So
yeah, solid movie. Right. It is on Netflix currently. You can see it there. Not quite 2 hours, more than 90 minutes though. I think it's about 150. So solid, if unspectacular. Great third act though. I will say that. Any final thoughts?
Just if you haven't checked this out, go check it out. Especially if you're a Don Lee fan or just a fan of just dystopian futures like this with a little bit of sci-fi as far as creatures and just people just being people, like I said, The Walking Dead, it was more about the people than it was the zombies. But this, you get the zombies plus the people. So.
Yeah, the Walking Dead was just them all whining philosophy rather than just trying to survive. And
towards the end,
it's pretty kind of simple.
I'll just say that The Walking Dead get better towards the end.
Well,
when they realize they need to do more than just have people versus people.
Right. One thing about this movie, Badland Hunters, just to kind of reiterate, this was a suggestion from one of our viewers too. Hey, check it out. Let us know what you think about it. So we appreciate you guys getting a suggestion. Don Lee had been on our short list for some while now, and so we're like, hey, let's try to slip this one in and see how it goes. So it's a standalone film. Technically, I think it's the second and the sequel that you mentioned at the beginning, but you can watch this on its own. It's fine. It's decent. It'll get you through an evening if you need to find something, if you're in that kind of mood.
If you guys haven't already done so, please click like, subscribe, make sure that notification bell is rung. Also go into your YouTube settings, make sure that the notification little check mark is checked so you get notifications. Otherwise, you're not going to get that on your mobile phone.
Next Sunday, 6:15-ish Eastern time, will be our season 1, episode 5 of Forever Night, the 800-year-old sensitive vampire show, Canadian as well. And then the short movie at the end, we've got a short list to be determined, but we'll put that up as soon as we make a decision on that. So keep those suggestions coming. Until then, have a good night and stay extreme.
Later, guys.